Well, then a similar sort of question is I've got to ask you about Jim Cornette. Now, uh, I don't know if you've ever seen the DM or the screenshot that the Young Bucks had, where he had literally DM'd them saying, "Hey, come on, let's try and get a storyline going," or something like that. Maybe a little deeper voiced. But my whole thing is Jim Cornette full of shit? Like, is he to be taken seriously when he? Because it really seems to me that if something's popular, he thinks it sucks. Like if like at WrestleMania, the match that tore the house down was Lashley versus Aleister Black, and I'm sure you'd love to talk about that match, but this isn't March 26th. It's in the past. But if that's this like 10-star classic, Cornette's gonna hit it. So the question that I'd say again is Jim Cornette someone that should be taken seriously?
Well, look, um, there were many years that I thought Jim Cornette was just totally off his rocker. As years have gone by, I have understood him more and more. Jim Cornette, I honestly don't think has any, malice in his body, in his heart. But he is extremely old school and is one of those guys that really, just looks at wrestling in the same glasses that he did 15 years ago. And I don't think that'll ever change. And, unfortunately, there are forms of wrestling right now that some people find entertaining. I mean, you see some of now with the coronavirus, there's a match online where the two guys are not even touching each other. And because of, the social distancing, they did this in the ring. Now, I think it's asinine and stupid. It's not killing the business because we know that everything is entertainment and predetermined and it's an art form. But when people do that, it's like spitting in the face. I'll give you a good example of it. Magicians. I don't remember who the magician was, but I remember many years ago on TV, they were hyping up a special that all the magic tricks were going to be revealed. And some asshole showed up on, US TV and basically revealed all of the magic tricks. Now, I could go on YouTube and figure out how a trick is done and, whatever. But when someone goes out there and purposely tries to let the cat out of the bag, I think that's disrespectful to the art of magic. When you have many years ago, there was some series on some cable channels. I know a lot of people that are watching will remember this, where it was all the secrets of wrestling revealed, and it's this and that. And, you had this person whose voice was scrambled and didn't want to reveal himself. And, to me, it's like, it's big F you to wrestling. So I understand why Jim Cornette wants to keep, the wrestling pure and an art form and suspension of disbelief. The problem is that Jim Cornette needs to understand that we're in a society now where it has evolved and things have changed. And, I'm not a fan of Joey Ryan with the dick flip. I think it's one of the most ridiculously stupid things. I mean, I thought when Papa Shango, made Ultimate Warrior throw up, I thought it was goofy. This stuff is just, I can't get. Wrestling should always be suspension of disbelief. Just like when you go into a movie theater see a horror film. From beginning of the movie to the end of the movie, you have that suspension of disbelief of what you're seeing is real. You don't have during the movie, Jason a half a block away go like this, and then somebody goes like that, and their head split open. When the cameras are rolling, you're supposed to have suspension of disbelief from beginning to end. So that's where I agree with Jim Cornette. The problem is that he will never win the fight of the evolving of wrestling in some forms. And unfortunately, he learned the hard way with NWA. And look, I have moved on as far as Dave Lagana. I am a huge fan of NWA right now. I plug it everywhere I can. People have been telling me, please do the episodes they do with the podcast. So, but the point is that when Cornette said what he said using the Ethiopia joke, on one of my shows, I played 5 different times that Cornette had said that over the years. And the thing is that in Cornette's heart, it was not racist. It was just a bad joke that is outdated and stupid. But when the cameras are rolling, Jim Cornette, his mind goes old school. So you think of jokes, you think of one-liners, you think of things that worked in the past. And I'll be quick with this, but when he talked about Trevor Murdoch and he talks about having a bucket of fried chicken and this and that, in 2020, 2019, people will think that is the most offensive thing out there, even though in Jim Cornette's heart, it's not meant that way. It's meant that he's such a tough guy that if he went through Ethiopia, and there's people are starving and need food and this and that, if you want to use it now, if Jim Cornette was doing commentary, he could say Trevor Murdoch is so tough that he could ride around the streets of New York City with a gallon of hand sanitizer on his back, and it would have had the same result. That's not race, but it's interpreted that way. And the problem why I brought up NWA is that for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, whoever produces the TV, whoever puts the episodes online, Dave Lagana and others, they heard it. They saw what Jim Cornette said, and it made past all of these people. And when people got really upset about it online, in my opinion, NWA threw Jim Cornette under the bus. Instead of taking a little bit of responsibility as well and saying, look, Jim, it's an outdated joke. It wasn't meant to be racist, this and that. They just really distanced themselves. So Jim Cornette has a lot of bitterness for what's going on today. I have a lot of bitterness for what's going on today. Joey Styles is a perfect example. It pisses me off to this day that Joey Styles is not on AEW or some type of wrestling promotion on TV. That guy is an awesome commentator. And because he made a dumb joke at the time, because that was the controversy with Trump saying you grabbed him by the pussy, Joey Styles doesn't have an ounce of hatred towards women in his body. He's pretty much been banned by wrestling. And it's not because the wrestling community is so in an uproar over Joey Styles. It's just that people out there are so afraid to speak out for themselves that if one promotion comes up and says, we're going to bring Joey Styles in, they're afraid that all of these people on social media put this company out of business, put this out of business. So Jim Cornette has a lot of animosity because of what is wrestling in some ways have become today. But the thing is that he'll never win that argument. And I don't think deep down inside he, has any, bitter hatred. But, you look at him as well. I'm not trying to insinuate this. Jim Cornette comes off like a guy that could be you probably, could easily get beat up. I don't know if Jim Cornette could defend himself in a fight. No one out there is going to physically hit him. But I think that defense shield comes up so bad with him, and it's such a target on his back that he is very bitter and very angry. And that's where Jim Cornette gets it wrong a lot of times, because like you said, you could have a particular match that really deserves to be appreciated. And in some ways, simply because of who's involved in the match, it gets ripped apart. I have defended Joey Janela sometimes. I understand why Jim Cornette calls him Joey Nutella and this and that, but Joey Janela actually does pretty good sometimes. And, still he will go out of his way to always criticize something. That's his right. I don't agree with Jim Cornette a lot, but I see you cannot win some of the arguments today. You just can't. So I think everybody in wrestling bullshits to a certain extent and exaggerates. It's the entertainment business. It happens in, non-wrestling entertainment. It's just, people, this is the way it's always been, and it's the way it always will be. Jim Cornette is old school. He will always be old school. And that unfortunately gets him in trouble sometimes.